What's happening, yo? Welcome back to the channel. After multiple different builds that I've experimented with the Invoker Monk, it's finally time to do the final build for the endgame for mapping, mostly. And we're going to go through all the details today, all the abilities, the support gem, the passive skill tree, and all the ins and outs of the techs and the new mechanics that we actually are playing with the Invoker Monk. I believe that this is by far the best build that you can have on the Invoker Monk for endgame, like any kind of endgame, even if you're starting right now, or T15, 16, 17, 18, all the way to the Pinnacle Bosses. It's very, very strong. And the best part about it is that it's actually pretty cheap. I haven't spent a single divine on this build, and I don't even have a unique item or the palsy ring or anything like that. You don't need any of that. So before we go into the details, I have prepared a T15 map just so you guys see how it plays and the gameplay. I think it's the best thing that we could do for you guys to see the gameplay first. So we're going to go into a random map right here. We're going to put the tier 15 into this map, level 81. And we're going to go through all the details later on. So let's just begin so you can see how this plays actually. We're hitting them and we're waiting for our charge staffs, and here we go. Oh, I got stuck with the pots there. There we go. Everything explodes. Explosions, explosions. Doesn't matter what it is. Charge staff. I'm gonna wait for that explosion. And there we go. Generating charges passively. Spamming Ice Strike. Using our charge staff every now and then. Oh, I got frozen. All good. You know what the great thing about this build is? I don't remember the last time that I died. And the reason for that is not only the gear and the resistances that we've got, but also if you guys notice on the bottom left, you're gonna see my energy shield. We have only 1 health. But we've got a lot of energy shield, and that's because of the Aura Grim Feast. We're gonna speak about everything in more detail later on. But not only we explode everything, but it's very hard for us to die here. We do have a couple of weaknesses that we're gonna talk more about later on. Got a tablet there. Let's grab that. There we go. That's cleared. So yeah, as you guys can see, I've got like 6,500 energy shield. By default, I've got 3,500, but now I've got 6,600 because of Green Feast. And there you go, map's completed. As easy as that. I didn't even see the shrine here. We completed the map. I don't think I'm gonna farm the rest of them. Like, it's good XP, but anyway, you know what? Let's just try and kill the bulk here, so you guys see more of this. I haven't died because Energy Shield is very, very overpowered. And if you have things like Grim Feast, it doubles your HP because we're playing with Energy Shield, so we don't really care about health. We care about the Energy Shield. And with a couple of nodes that we're going to see later on, we make it almost impossible for us to die. And we're actually immune to chaos damage, which is a big thing. But yeah, the two major weaknesses that this build has is, the first one is the fiery grounds, or burning grounds, or whatever they're called. Like, you know, there's fire on the ground. That one's going to consume your energy shield very, very quickly. So be careful with that one. We're going to talk about this later on as well. But yeah, the second one is that you need to press the mana potion every now and then. But other than that, it's insane. Like, I haven't died in ages. Okay, whatever. We're done with this. I spent a couple of hours making sure that everything is in here. I'm going to provide you guys with a link below so you can follow this guide. But we're going to go ahead and see every single one of them together. So the first thing that obviously we want to tackle is what spells do we have, the abilities that we have, and the support gems. So starting with of the obvious one, our main ability is Ice Strike. Here, what you want to know is that obviously Ice Strike, you want to try and get it as high as you possibly can. Currently, I've got it at level 19. I'm farming a little bit of currency so I can get my level 20. And obviously, whenever you do that, do make sure that you have 4 or 5 slots without corrupting the spell, so you can be able then to provide it with quality. Quality on Ice Strike especially, and Tempest Bell, obviously with the Heralds we're going to discuss later on, but Ice Strike is very, very important to be as high as possible and as high as in quality as possible as well. So Ice Strike is using Martial Tempo, which is a must, Ice Bite as a second priority, and then we have Concentrated Effect and Heft. Now, if you manage to get a 5th slot on Ice Strike, I encourage you to go with Rage, because Rage is a very, very good mechanic, if you will, for the Monk especially, because you, as you guys can see, whenever I was clearing the map, we are hitting non-stop. So we're getting Rage. Rage provides us with more damage, so it's fairly understandable and simple why we need Rage. But we do have a couple of more things that complements the Rage as well. I did do the Endgame with Rage on Tempest Bell instead of Font of Rage, and that was working well for bosses and rares. But I did get my 5th slot on Ice Strike, so I've got these 5. So Martial Tempo, Ice Bite, Concentrated Effect, and Heft. The reason why you want that, obviously Martial Tempo speeds up Ice Strike. Ice Bite provides you with more cold damage, which is what we want, obviously, for the explosions and all of that stuff. You want extra damage too. Then we've got Concentrated Effect, which increases the damage by 40%. You don't really care about the range of Ice Strike because you've got 2 Heralds that does that for you, plus the Charge Staff with its beams and stuff like that. And then we've got Heft, which has 30% more maximum physical damage, which obviously we need that because we're hitting the melee with the Quarterstaff. And then Rage provides Rage upon hit. Then the second ability is Tempest Bell. Tempest Bell is usually used for rares and bosses, or if you're swarmed in breaches, that can help you, because don't forget, once you hit Tempest Bell, it's going to have a massive impact when it lands, so it's going to kill a lot of them. You do want to make sure that you maximize this ability as well, because it's crucial for bosses and rares. But the support gems on this are Close Combat, which helps you, obviously, you care whenever you place it, that's where you want the damage to be. So you don't care about the range, once again. So once you place that, it gives you 25% attack damage whenever everybody's close to you. Then we've got Heavy Swing for additional 35% physical damage. For anybody who doesn't know what Cold Exposure is, you know the resistances, they drop the resistance of the mobs or the enemies, and then it goes to 0 if you manage to have a lot of resistances. Well, Exposure makes it to go negative from 0. So you definitely want that. Cold Exposure on the Bell helps you deal much more damage on the bosses. Next up, we've got Super Critical, because Super Critical provides you like 100% increased critical damage bonus. And then lastly, I have Font of Rage if you manage to get the 5th one, which complements the Rage as well. Next ability, we've got Charge Staff. Charge Staff is an insanely good ability when you're leveling up, but in the end game, this build is clearing everything with the 2 Heralds and Ice Strike and the bosses, or with Tempest Bell. The Charge Staff is not like the prio ability, but it's still good because we're getting passive charges generated by Combat Frenzy. So we do want Charge Staff. It does enhance your Ice Strike. And on Charge Staff, we do have Conduction for 100% more shock chance, Primal Armament for 25% more elemental damage, and of course, Overcharge, which increases by 75% the magnitude of the shocks whenever you're hitting with Charge Staff, which is enhancing the Ice Strike, which is always because you only spam one ability, which is Ice Strike. Next up is Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder. Before we go each one and why, what support gems we're having on them, I just want to say that this is a new tech that I have no idea who discovered. I don't know who they are, but I saw it, I wanted to try it, and I never looked back since. It's insanely good how these two complement each other. And these two auras together are the reason why I don't have the Pulsey ring or the Call of Brotherhood ring that a lot of people are using, because Herald of Ice is going to help you shatter the enemies, which is something that Pulsey does. But Herald of Thunder is going to trigger Herald of Ice even more, and Herald of Ice is going to trigger Herald of Thunder even more. So now we have the shock chance explosions and the ice explosions at the same time, which whenever one triggers the other one triggers the other one, it causes you to clear the entire screen and further away from the monitor as well without you even seeing what you cleared. That's the reason. And here's the beautiful thing about this, is that on Herald of Ice, you're going to go with magnified effect because you want it to get as much range as possible whenever you're one-tapping them and hitting them and it triggers that explosion. You want that explosion to go as far as you possibly can. And then the other three are Lightning Infusion, which gains 25% of damage as lightning damage and loses 50% less cold damage, which we're going to see in a second why we chose to do that. And then lightning exposure, which again, exposure goes -0 on the resistance of lightning. And then innervate for 35% more lightning damage. When you put these things, it empowers Herald of Thunder. Herald of Thunder's damage is increased by 25 and 35% here on the lightning damage. And Herald of Ice is losing 50% cold. But then on Herald of Thunder, you come and put Cold Infusion, which increases 25% cold damage. Glaciation, which increases your freeze buildup, which is what you need for the explosions to happen without the Pulsey Ring. Then we've got Ambush for 100% more critical chance, and Long Shot for Herald of Thunder to take as much range as possible. So what we did there is we're putting the cold stuff on Herald of Thunder and the lightning stuff on Herald of Ice, which then what happens is one triggers the other one, that's how they trigger each other, and one boosts the damage of the other one, which is insane, as you guys saw. So it works perfectly. Next are the four obvious auras. Number one is the Combat Frenzy, which is what you need for generation of the charges. Obviously here we go with Profusion, so you can get more than one charges. And the second one that we have here is Clarity, so it can help out with the mana generation a little bit. As you guys saw, maybe you noticed that I clicked a few times the Mana Potion. As I said, is one of the small weaknesses of this spec. That you need to click on the Mana Potion. But I don't mind it because we only have one ability to click, which is Ice Strike. And the second one is Charge Staff every 30 to 45 seconds. And then the third one is Mana Potion, which is absolutely fine. Then the next aura we've got is Grim Feast, which is one of the most important auras in this build, other than the two Heralds, which is what causes our energy shield to double. So Grim Feast, what it does, if you don't know, is whenever you kill something, it drops like these, what is it called? Remnants, orbs, white orbs. And when you pick them up, it gives you energy shield beyond your cap. So it's very, very crucial. And on Grim Feast, you want precision and cannibalism. Then we've got our two extra defensives, which is Wind Dancer and Ghost Dance. They really, really help you with the evasion, because evasion and energy shield are crucial on the monk. And Wind Dancer, you want to put Unbreakable, is 200% more stun threshold, because this build, if you're stunned, it is very hard, especially if there's something on the ground and you're stunned on it. It's really Unbreakable really helps with that one. Then you've got Blind for the extra CC, and the last one is Calling Strike, which is acts like an execute for the mobs, which is really good. And then we've got Ghost Dance, and on Ghost Dance you want to go with Fast Forward. As you guys see right here, the rotation, like you saw on the map clearance, is you just spam Ice Strike, you consume charges with Charge Staff, and then you continue spamming Ice Strike. For the bosses and the rares, you want to start with the Ice Strike, so you can build 4 combo points, drop the bell, and then Charge Staff if you have the charges, and spam Ice Strike on the bell. That's as simple as it gets with the rotation. Now, moving forward to the passive tree, this is the important part here. The main thing that you want to do is that there's a staging process, if you will, on how you want to build this. Like if you're already into the end game and you are, let's say, level 80 or whatever, then it's going to be easier to do this. But if you're still leveling on cruel difficulty, for example, or you just entered endgame, then I would suggest you to do this like in stages. So stage 1 is whenever you're looking at this build, you want to get the defensives first. So things like Mindful Awareness, we've got this down here, Subterfuge Mask, we've got this Melding for extra energy shield, we've got all the way up here Inner Faith, Then if we go all the way up here, we've got Patient Barrier. And then we've got the two main nodes for this build, which is Chaos Inoculation and Eternal Youth. And then you start building on all the other damages apart from crit. So it's up to you depending on what level you are. But the reason why you want to do that is so first, you want to make sure that you don't die. Whenever you secure that and you stop dying, then obviously you're going to be able to progress in the content a lot more. And obviously with when you pair it with the gear that we're going to talk about in a second, your energy shield is going to be decent enough for you not to die again. And then what you want to get or balance with it is you want to get all the damaging nodes apart from crit. So for example, things like Killer Instinct, which is flat attack damage, or tenfold attacks, which is attack speed. Then we've got the this one, which is very crucial, is cold damage buildup. For the explosions to happen. Or we go up here, which is Thin Ice. That's a freezed buildup as well. You're going to get all of these for sure. And whenever you get these here as well, True Strike for the Jugular and Deadly Force, and then we have Moment of Truth. All of these are crucial nodes that you need to be able to deal more damage, as well as these two, which these two need to go in as early as possible. Crashing Wave and Flow State. I'm pretty sure that on the build, you're going to be able to follow through my path. I made sure that I did it the way that I leveled up and I went through with it in the end game. Whenever you manage to complete your first ascension, let's say you do have your first point, I personally went with Sunder My Enemy. That was early in the acts, so you can neglect those resistances whenever you're critting. The second ascendance point that I went was Lead Me Through Grace, because this is crucial. If you want to be running this build, you need a lot of spirit. And the way that you get spirit, other than the 100 spirit that you get from the campaign, is through your chest piece. So if we go back to the game, you will see my chest piece right now has 964 evasion rating and 368 energy shield, right? So if you put those numbers together and you do the math, since we got this, it says here you gain 1 spirit for every 6 energy shield and 1 spirit for every 15 evasion rating. So this plus the campaign spirit, as you guys can see on the bottom right corner, I currently have 225 spirit. And I'm using all the gems and all the auras that I showed you. And I've got like 10 spirit extra. So that's why you need that node. Okay. Then the third ascension, what you want to go for first is I Am the Blizzard. This provides you with 10% damage on as cold damage, and freezing enemy create chilled grounds, which helps you with extra CCs and stuff like that. So that's the first 3. And I know that the first 3, a lot of people have the first 3. They're fairly easy to get to. And the fourth one is the most difficult one. So I'm not going to talk about it now. But whenever you get it, you want to go with I Am the Thunder. And I'll explain why in a second. But once you get the first and the second one, you should be done with this tree's defensive nodes and attacking nodes apart from the crit. Whenever you're at that stage, right, then you start focusing on the crit nodes. And the crit nodes are things like all of these here: Heartbreaking, Stuck Through, Heart Stopping. Then we have some crits right here. We have some crits right here. So you just complete all of this, plus you get some more attack speed here, etc., etc. So once you get the crits, you're going to be able to get your third Ascendancy and you go into I Am the Blizzard. And whenever you get the fourth one, then you want to go I Am Thunder. For this mapping clearance build, I Am Thunder provides you the same thing as I Am Blizzard, which enhances Herald of Thunder, Herald of Cold, which enhances Ice Strike, and it makes this whole build just fall in place like a puzzle piece. What a lot of other people do is instead of I Am Thunder, they go for Meditate. Faith is a Choice unlocks a brand new ability called Meditate. For anybody who doesn't know what Meditate does, is it's a new ability that you need to click. And whenever you click it, your character takes some time to meditate and double your energy shield, like a channeling effect. And it's really, really good. It's an insanely good ability. However, we don't need it because we are using Grim Feast, and Grim Feast is doing exactly the same thing. The only downside on Grim Feast is that if you're fighting Pinnacle Bosses, then Grim Feast is going to be useless. So what you could do in that case is, if you're just mapping, and the bosses that you're killing are easy, then stick to Grim Feast. If you're not mapping and you're fighting Pinnacle Bosses or something that it's a single target and it's hard and it doesn't have any extra mobs that you can grab the remnants from Grim Feast, then you want to switch to Meditate. Now, there are two more things that I wanted to talk about in the passive skill tree. It's the attributes and the jewel sockets. So in this case, in this build, you definitely want to balance out dexterity and intelligence. The reason why dexterity helps you with the accuracy so you can be able to hit them. And not only that, you definitely need a lot of dexterity so you can be able to use your items for the monk, the gear that we're going to see in a second, plus some support gems and abilities. But also you need intellect for the same reason, not the gear, but the support gems. And also intellect provides you with more mana. We're going to see the character panel in a second, but I do have a lot of intellect and a lot of mana and still had to press my mana potion. So intellect is very important so you can be able to run Grim Feast in a higher level and stuff like that. So be careful whenever you're doing your attributes. You want to respect your skill gems, because if you have Grim Feast, for example, at level 15 and you want to take it to level 17, it's going to require more intellect. So you want to have that intellect for you to be able to run a higher Grim Feast. And when it comes down to the jewels, there are two jewels. Again, I'm going to provide everything that I'm just saying right here. If you guys go, I wrote all of this so you guys can be able to read that and make sure that you understand everything that's happening and explaining everything. But the jewels, what you care about are two very specific jewels. One is a fully focused damaging jewel. What you're looking for is elemental damage, critical damage as well. And the other one, I don't know why it doesn't display it, but it's very similar. You're looking for crit, you're looking for physical damage, you're looking for elemental damage, you're looking for cold damage. Things like that is what you're looking for on your jewels. That's two of them. If you go through all of this build, you're going to have 4 jewel slots available, and 2 of them are going to be emerald with the stats that I said. The other 2, which is probably the biggest damage booster, is what I said before with Rage. So what I went for here is the Ruby that has gain 1 Rage on melee hit. Don't get me wrong, the Ruby for monks is a terrible jewel, but having 1 Rage on melee hit is insanely good for us, especially if our main ability is a melee hit that we only spam. So your rage, if you're just going through breaches, is always going to be 30 out of 30. So your damage potential is going to always be maximized. So both of my my spare jewels here, I think this one and this one, there you go, have 1 rage on melee hit. So these are the 4 jewels that I'm going for. That's basically for the passive tree. And now if you look at my character panel, you're going to see I'm level 88, the map that you saw before. I have 190 dexterity. And I have 159 intelligence, which is pretty good. Now, as you see, unfortunately, my resistances are not the best. I'm capped with cold, which is good. I'm almost capped with lightning, which I don't really care about the lightning. My problem is the fire. And still, I don't remember the last time that I died, even if I have 48. The reason why I have 48 is because I recently upgraded a belt that had fire like 30%, and now it doesn't, I believe, something like that. But I focused on my rarity stat as well. We're going to talk about that in a second. But this is the character panel, okay? This is everything that's happening with my character right now. And since we covered that, let's go ahead and talk about the gear, which is very, very, very important. So first things first, the most important thing on the monk is the weapon. Currently, this is the weapon. I'm going to show it to you in game as well because the stats are slightly different, but I want you to get the point of this. You want to invest as much as you can on your weapon. Once again, don't forget, I've never given a divine for this build. Everything that you see here were a couple of exalted orbs each. I think I paid 8 exalted orbs for this quarterstaff, and to be completely honest, it's not very good. The only reason I took this quarterstaff, if I show you in game, the stats are a little bit different because of the quality. As you can see, it has a cap physical damage at 527, which is a huge number. Now, what I'm looking to fix here is the only good stat right here, actually is 2, is the physical damage on it and the 27 dexterity. Everything else is very bad. What I'm looking to change, what you want to get is high physical damage, maybe not 527. I would prefer something like 430, but you want to target cold damage and crit on your quarterstaff. These two are very, very important, plus the physical damage, of course. So physical damage, crit, and cold would be much, much better than this staff with 527 and no cold or no crit damage. We've got rarity on the items found, which is probably the craziest stat that you can get. So every piece of gear that's allowed to have rarity on items found, make sure that you have as much as you possibly can. If you don't know why, it increases the quality of items that you get whenever you're killing stuff. So if I go back to the game, how you know how much you've got is if you right click on your Ice Strike and you scroll down a little bit, you're gonna see on kill effect, slain monster item drop rarity modifier 157%. So every single time I'm killing a monster, I have 157% chance of everything that drops to be better. So I started getting more exalted, more divine orbs, better uniques, better items. So it's a very, very crucial stat for you guys to focus apart from damage. And to be completely honest, every item that you're going to see now, I didn't lose damage because of it. So it's pretty good. So on the helmet, you want to focus on critical hit chance and any resistance that you could possibly get, plus the rarity. If you can find mana, that would help as well. But the main stat is energy shield. We want as much energy shield out of this as possible. And then you're gonna slap a rune on there, which increases 20% the armor, evasion, and energy shield, because that 20% is gonna be massive on your energy shield. Moving on, we've got my chest that I showed you before. I've got high evasion rating and high energy shield. If you see below, we've got maximum life. That's bad. We've got the intelligence, which is decent. Fire resistance is decent, and the other one is bad. This is a chest piece that I'm trying to change. There are better stats that you can go with here, stuff like mana or better resistances. Here is where I can fix my fire resistance as well, my lightning. But what you want to focus on, the most important thing here is evasion rating and energy shield. Moving forward, we've got the gloves, which are insanely good. It's one of my favorite pieces of gear that I got. We've got physical attack damage on it. We've got cold attack damage on it. Maximum mana that helps with our mana. Fire and cold resistance. Life per enemy killed is bad. I tried to put like an extra exalted on it, hopefully getting something else, but we got that, which is pretty bad. We put some lightning resistance on it because I was pretty low. And again, it has evasion rating and energy shield that helps with the energy shield. Next, we've got the boots, which we've got more lightning resistance on that. And again, this is a rune that I put based on what I was missing. And it's going to change for you what rune you're going to put. But here, the boots, there are a few things that you want to prioritize. Number one, you want energy shield as much as you possibly can on the boots. Number two, you want movement speed as much as you can possibly afford for the boots to have movement speed on. Three, rarity of the items. And number four, try and get at least 1 or 2 resistances on the boot. Then we've got the belt, which is one of my most recent purchases, I believe. Unfortunately, it has armor, but whatever, armor is one of the worst defensive. It does have 2 charm slots, which is pretty decent. Gives me some more mana. It has fire resistance and lightning resistance. Simple as that. Then we move on to the rings. My first ring has +8 elemental resistance on everything, physical damage and cold damage. The rings are very, very important. The rings and the amulet, as well as the weapon, these 4 things, or 3 things, but 2 rings, are going to increase your damage by a crazy amount. Once you get a good weapon, focus on a good ring, then focus on a good amulet, then focus on the rest. Why? Because on the rings, you can stack physical damage, you can stack cold damage, you can stack resistances, you can stack rarity. It's insane how good this is. So as you can see, this ring, I think it was around 12 or 15, I believe so, 12 to 15 exalted orbs in the time that I'm recording this video, obviously. I don't know if in a month or 2 it's going to be more, but yeah, that's what I paid for that one. And this one is very similar to the other one. It stacks physical damage, cold damage, and rarity. The 3 things that I care about, plus some evasion as well that helps out, in intelligence for the mana, lightning resistance, and all of that good stuff. And lastly, the amulet. This one gives me 12 dexterity. You don't need to focus on the dexterity there. try and get something that's relevant to you. Don't get like increased attribute requirements or stuff like that. Get something that's relevant to you, either more mana, dexterity, intelligence, obviously, rarity on the items, whatever you can possibly get your hands on. But look at that rarity. 55% rarity found on the amulet, plus 157 mana, plus we've got critical hit chance, 19%, and then 33% critical damage bonus. This is by far the most expensive item that I got. It was around 25 exalted, I believe. And if you're wondering, whoa, wow, you said it's cheap and now it's like almost 50 exalted everything. If you're going into endgame without these, I went to tier 15 without any of these items. Like I had very bad items like the chest on everywhere here. Once you start going tier 13, 14, 15, for anybody who doesn't know, you're going to start getting exalted everywhere. Not only that, like the majority of things that you have in your stash probably go for exalted and you haven't sold them yet. So I got to the point where I had like 70 or 80 exalted and I started upgrading my gear. But again, I didn't pay like 50 for one item. That's the amulet that I'm going for. Again, it could have been better, but it works perfectly for me at the stage that I'm on right now. And the last thing that you're going to see there, it allocates overwhelming strike. For anybody who doesn't know what that is, there's another mechanic in PoE too in the end game is whenever you're doing maps, let me just show you the maps real quick for anybody who doesn't know. If you go on the map right here, I'm going to try not to spoil anything, but whenever you see these icons right here, you see these icons, right? This icon, let me see if I can have one for you guys to see how it actually explains it. There you go. Area contains a delirium mirror. These mirrors, you can go through the mirror and the whole stage and the vibe is going to change and you're going to have like gates opening and you need to kill them before the timer runs. Like the more you kill, the more time you add into it. And whenever it's done, you're going to get like it's going to drop deliriums. And these deliriums right here are things like that. Distilled paranoia, envy, guilt, eerie, and fear and stuff like that. So whenever you have these, then if you right click them, you're going to get the instilling. Instilling is on the amulet. Once you put your amulet here and you put 3 very specific ones in specific order, it's going to give you an ability, a node, actually not ability, excuse me, a node from the tree anywhere from the tree. So what we are doing is overwhelming. This ability right here, we have it on our amulet. And what it wanted, as you guys can see, it wanted 1 despair, 1 envy, and 1 disgust. So I farmed these. And I instilled these 3 on my amulet, and now my amulet has overwhelming strike. I have an additional 20% hit chance, 20% damage bonus, and 20% stun build up with critical hits, which is insane, by the way. It's really, really good. So you want to go with overwhelming strike. Another good one for anybody who's missing a few of these emotions, the distilled emotions. Another good one is Storm Charged, was it? There it is. Yep, I was right. Okay, this one. Sorry. There you go. Storm Charge. 40% increase elemental damage if you dealt a critical hit recently. 20% increase critical hit chance. This is really good as well, but it does require 2 fears and 1 envy. And in the time of this recording, fear is the most expensive one. I don't know if you're lucky, but personally, if you have 2 fears, I wouldn't go with this. I would go with the overwhelming strike and then sell these so you can get some currency. But yeah, this is a good alternative. And that's pretty much it for the gear. The things that I think I'm going to improve after this build has nothing to do with the build itself. I don't think this build is ever going to change for now, at least. The only thing I'm going to try and upgrade are obviously my 5 slots, my 4 slots, whatever they're needed. I'm still missing Herald of Thunder 4th slot and Tempest Bell as well. And obviously improve some of my gear, and that's basically it. I don't think this build is going to change, and that's why it's going to be the final one for the Invoker Monk. I'm going to do my best to try and level up another Monk for going for the other Ascension and see some potentially good builds there, because I know a lot of you guys are messaging me saying that you went for the other Ascension as well. But yeah, this is probably my favorite build so far with Monk. We've tried multiple different ones, the Storm Wave and all of that stuff. And this is by far the most fun for me and the easiest one to excel and progress through the end game. The two weaknesses, as we said before, for you guys to keep in mind is the burning grounds on the ground and using mana potion. That's basically it. So if you see burning grounds on the floor, don't stand in them or try and roll through them, or prepare your finger to press your health potion. Because if you stand there in 5 seconds, you're dead. Just saying. That's the only weakness that I found. And even if, and it's not me, by the way, I had 75% fire resistance and I was still almost dying to just fiery grounds. It doesn't matter your resistance, I don't think. It didn't really help me having 75%. It's just something that depletes the energy shield. So be aware of that. Anyway, I think I covered everything on this build. I hope I didn't forget anything. It's a really good build for early leveling all the way to the end game, to the highest point of the end game. This build is insanely good. If you guys don't know how to find the early one, you can see the related build over here, and you can go and watch that video as well. If you guys have any questions at all, do make sure that you type them down in the comments below. And as always, I'm going to try and answer on every single comment like I've been doing so far. If you have any suggestions or if you have any builds you want me to check out, feel free to let me know. Do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel so you can help me grow and continue following through these upgrades. I'm probably going to move to a different class now so we can start providing guides onto there as well. But yeah, the Monk is going to be my main. I'm going to keep going Pinnacle Bosses and all that stuff and provide you with future guides in case something changes. And as always, thank you so much for the amazing support, you guys, and I'm going to see you on the next one. Peace.